Hello everybody. Happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all of you that show up here and in any capacity as always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Looking in the comments. Hi Mary. Hi Nikita. Glad to see you guys here. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put our intention up here for this week. Maybe. All right, my buttons don't seem to be working, so give me just a second here, everybody. Let me just go ahead and do it this way. There we go. Okay. I have a little controller thing that I use here with buttons, and for some reason that's not working at the moment, but I can just do it with the mouse too. So yeah, here's our intention for this week. So whether or not this is the first time you've heard the words, I want to go ahead and give you a reminder that they come out on Friday. Intention comes out Friday, weekly video comes out on Saturday, and then we meet here for our live meditation on Sunday. The weekly videos, they've gotten a little bit longer. It feels like it's gotten a little bit harder to, I don't know, for a while they were pretty short. I was keeping them around like 20 minutes or so. I don't know, lately they've been a little bit more like between 20, 30, even 40 minutes. And it just feels like I'm not able to say everything that I want to say in the shorter period of time. So I know I had a few people that said they really liked the short ones. And I feel like I was really trying to keep with that. But in trying to keep with that, it felt like I wasn't able to convey or get everything that I want to do or bring out the structure that I want to or something like that. So I just kind of felt like I wanted to say something about that here too. Yeah, so that's a little side note coming back into where we are here with the intention. Here are our words for this week. In the between spaces, there are messages. In the between spaces, there are messages. So let's all take just a moment to sit with these words, whether or not it's the first time you've heard them. Let's just sit with these words for just a moment and just see what, if anything, comes up for you here. So, in the between spaces, there are messages. I see the between spaces popping up several different ways throughout the astrology of this week. I see it just kind of where we're at timeline-wise, astrologically, and seasonally. So we're between the eclipses, right? We had the Pisces lunar eclipse with the last full moon, and then the solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo is going to be coming up next Sunday, actually, when we meet for our next meditation a week from today. So we're in between those two spaces. That couple weeks in between the eclipses can be very interesting, powerful, dynamic. It can show a lot about what's going on with the eclipses for some people. Not everybody, but for some people it can really hit with a punch those couple weeks. Another in-between space is that just after the solar eclipse, the sun is going to move into the sign of Libra, and that brings us a turning point in the astrological year as well as seasonally, and those two correlate and work together simultaneously there. So when the sun moves into the sign of Libra, that's going to give us our fall equinox moment, and it's a shift. It's a shift from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year, symbolically through the sun's motion throughout the seasons and throughout the zodiacal signs, which is what our Western astrological circle and year is all based on. So we have these couple in-between spaces that we are in, but then our aspects feel like it really shouts that out too. So we're going to focus a lot on Mercury this week. Mercury, being the messenger, also feels like it plays right into the intention and was a big part of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the wheel up, and we're going to talk about the astrology here for just a moment, I think. Except I don't remember exactly how to do that from here. So let me just, let's see, if you all can just bear with me for just a moment here. I'll see if I can, nope. I have these other images that I've put up here, and I don't remember exactly which one of these brings that one up. So I'm actually going to ask you all to give me just a moment. For those of you that may be new here this week, this is not typical. So give me just a moment here. All right, everybody. I'm trying to figure out how to put the chart up on here because, like I said, that little thing isn't exactly working. But what I might do is I might just walk you guys through the chart instead of actually showing the picture here if I don't get this working in the next second or so here. Yeah, that's not it. All right, yeah, we're just gonna walk through, I'm just gonna walk through and describe it rather than actually showing it here on the chart. The first thing that I wanted to point out here is that we're talking about these in-between spaces here, and the moon right at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, like where I am located, so it might be, hang on just a second, this kind of threw me off a little bit here, so take a deep breath here first, then we're going to move on. Okay, the first thing I wanted to point out here was that at the moment that our meditation started tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, the moon moved from the sign of Gemini into the sign of Cancer. And that was the first thing that I really wanted to show you guys. So to me, I've talked about this before, that the chart of the moment from where I am at astrologically and the chart of the time where we start the meditation here can be a symbolic moment of either confirming what we're getting into with the meditation, or it can be a little guiding moment, guiding force. But at that moment that we started the meditation, we were in this in-between spot where the moon was moving from the sign of Gemini into the sign of Cancer. I was going to show you guys that it was like literally 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Solar Fire that it popped forward. So that is really, really interesting to me. If you listened to the weekly video, you will hear me talk a lot about Mercury and the sequence that Mercury is going through. So this week, Mercury is going to oppose Neptune, and then it's going to move into the sign of Libra, and then just as it does so, it's going to, sorry, excuse me, just before Mercury moves into the sign of Libra, it's going to oppose Saturn, and then it's going to move into the sign of Libra, and as it moves into the sign of Libra, it's going to oppose Neptune. We also have the Sun on Saturday at the very end of the week moving into an opposition with Saturn itself, and that sets us up for the solar eclipse. We'll talk about that next week's video as well as next week's meditation, even though it'll be right on Sunday. But we have all these oppositions. That opposition to Saturn is going to be built right into the solar eclipse. Saturn has been built into the last couple lunar cycles. It was built into the Pisces lunar eclipse by moving back into the sign of Pisces just days before that eclipse. There's been a lot of Saturn energy that has been going on. And all of these aspects, the nature of the opposition, as well as the planets that we have involved, feels like it screams in between spaces and messages here to me. Saturn of all of the traditional planets, Saturn is the outermost planet. So we have the outer planets that we use now. We have Neptune, we have Uranus, we have Pluto. But before those planets were discovered and we had the traditional planets and luminaries, Saturn was the farthest most out planet. So there's a lot of similarities in between what Saturn, from my understanding, Saturn traditionally represented, with a lot of what Neptune represents, as far as being a boundary space between like this world and the spiritual world, or the physical and the energetic world, or the spiritual world, or whatever the here and there is to you. So Saturn sits on the boundaries of the visible world and what is beyond that. So that's an in-between space. Neptune, within its own right too, takes us to otherworldly spaces, right? It can totally envelop us in energy, it can engulf us in energy and make us feel totally immersed in an energy, or totally intoxicated, or like there's nothing else that is around. It brings us into a space that can be between a couple different things where we don't necessarily see those other things that are going on. It can dissolve energies away. It can bring us into a space where we can slow down. Both Neptune and Saturn to me feel like they are planets that slow things down rather than speeding things up. And Mercury is a fast-moving planet. So Mercury, coming into contact with Neptune and with Saturn this week, can be slowed down within its nature. So Saturn tends to go fast. It's our thoughts, it's our movements, it's the way we communicate, it's the different tools and resources and the routines. So there's a lot of agility and a lot of fluctuation to Mercury, right? When we find space to slow down, we can get into these in between spaces. We have the opposition between Sun and Saturn this week as well. So slowing down the spaces of the sun, that's where you get those ideas of maturity with Saturn, or you get death or old age. You get that slowing down, or things starting to come to a settling point or a resting point of some kind, or a wind down of energy. So the opposition too, which are a lot of these aspects that we have, to me feels like an in-between. It feels like an in-between because the oppositions, they have the tendency to either bring things together or repel them away. And it's interesting how they can do both, right? So like the conjunctions when two planets come together, they come together, and they're like the different things that they represent and their significations and what they each bring to the table where they are, they come together and they meld, and you can join those two. But when you have them in opposition, they are at opposite ends of the chart. So they are in spaces that literally cannot be any further apart. However, there is always a hidden or maybe subtle, or if you look in between the spaces, there is a subtle commonality between all axes of the chart and all houses and all signs. So if you think about Aries and Libra, if you think about Taurus and Scorpio, if you think about Gemini and Sagittarius, and so on and so forth, there are stark differences, but there are hidden commonalities, or maybe not necessarily hidden, but things that we need to think a little bit deeper about how these different things can connect. So there's this way, and oppositions can bring together, but usually they come together through some sort of hiddenness or subtleness or something that you don't quite see right away. So often there's some sort of struggle, there's some sort of difficulty, a challenge, or some sort of work that is needed to bring the opposition together here. That requires slowing down, requires looking at different perspectives, that requires going in between spaces here. A lot of these aspects that we're talking about are from Mercury. Mercury is the messenger. So, like I said, I see many different ways this week how in the between spaces, there are messages that are coming through here for us. In the weekly video, I talked about the sextile between Venus and Mars. That is exact today and tomorrow, and then Tuesday maybe starting to kind of fall away, but really through the weekend, through the really early part of this week here. That sextile is from Leo to Libra, the two signs that surround Virgo, the place where the solar eclipse is. So it's like these two planets are working together in spaces that are surrounding an area that is already has a whole lot of action and a whole lot of movement and a lot of things going on. And so then we have this subtle aspect where you have the masculine and the feminine energies that are coming together in ways that with other things that are going on might not be the loudest thing that is happening within the chart, but it's bringing some harmony and cohesion between, these two different energies. And Venus and Leo might be able to help Mars in the sign of Libra, who might be a little bit afflicted or a little bit troubled where it's at there. So yeah, these in-between spaces, I feel like we are offered a space to slow down, to read between the lines, see when we stop and pause and see what comes through. There's shifts. Venus moves into the sign of Virgo this week. Mercury moves into the sign of Libra. So we have these in-between spaces where this week those two planets are affecting two different signs and making a transition from one sign to another. So that's two different areas of our life, two different topics, two different houses. So that's another little in-between space that we are in. Yeah, and as Venus moves into the sign of Libra, she's going to make that, into the sign of Virgo, she's going to make the square to Uranus in the sign of Gemini. Uranus can bring messages, but brings messages in a little bit different way than Mercury does, maybe not quite so subtle. Some of the messages that can come through with Uranus are more insightful, knowledge, liberating, things coming through like aha moments, enlightened moments where it almost feels like the message and the information that's coming through is very, very much like a download or something that comes through suddenly. Mercury, I think of messages coming through more through either a process or some sort of ritual of tapping into, the messages coming through from other realms or other energies or, the other side, whatever those terms mean to you. Yeah, so really, really interesting spaces to slow down, bring in messages. Messages can come through Uranus, through Mercury, through Neptune. Neptune can bring some really lovely otherworldly messages when connecting with Saturn. Connecting with Mercury. Mercury and Saturn can bring some messages that bring us to the outer limits of things. Maybe it will test us in certain ways, but maybe it can also bring in some greater foundations too, even if there's some serious conversations that need to happen. Remembering the in-between spaces, remember the pauses within the conversations, remembering to take the body language and things like that, and like the actions of others rather than just the words, and take everything into consideration. So yeah, that's the astrology that we have for this week, and I personally am really looking forward to it. When we have so much Saturn, which we've had a lot of Saturn going on, we have a lot coming up this week here too, and with the eclipse too, things can feel really heavy. They can feel really weighty. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, they can feel emotionally heavy. It can feel like we're carrying a lot. It can feel like, especially in the sign of Pisces where we have that energetic sponge and things are really pulled in. it can really feel like it is exhaustive carrying the emotional load that we are, or like how much more can I bring in? I need to be able to release something. So not discounting any of the heaviness that a lot of us have probably been feeling, but there's structure within those spaces where we're meant to slow down. Maybe it makes us a little bit uncomfortable, but where can we go from there, right? I think there are, if we slow down, if we listen, if we tune inward, if we consider, I don't know, all the things, whatever that means for you, I think there are maybe subtle, maybe loud messages that are there for many of us. And messages can come through in many different ways, right? They can come through in, big signs and omens that are obvious and, out there, but they can also come through in small conversations. They can come through in, small little moments. They can come through in, just the glance from the right person. So just being open to all of that, I feel like while slowing down is not a bad thing for anybody this week with just with where we're at and all of that. And then, of course, the cards that come up are just, they're always spot on here, right? So we have the Two of Swords that came reversed. Two of Swords, so it was upside down in the reverse position. And we had the Hanged Man in the upright position. There we go. Love this deck, my little frog there. Frogs have been interesting and have been a theme and a thing lately here. So we have the Two of Swords reversed, we have the Hanged Man. The Two of Swords tells me that there's a duality within the mind. There's multiple things going on, there's maybe many, many things going on, or there's a choice. And when there's a battle within the mind or within the mental sphere, or there's two different things that we're considering, we can feel like we're pulled in two different directions. And when you're pulled in two different directions, it's really hard to move in either directions. I'm thinking of like those little finger traps that we used to have when I was a kid, where you put your fingers in them, and if you just try to pull, it doesn't come out. You have to do one at a time, and you have to do it slowly. If you just try to come out, you're never going to escape it. You have to slow down, right? You have to slow down and you have to stop, and you have to think, and you have to decide which is the best choice, and you have to, see if you can marry the two, or if you have to let one go. Sounds a whole lot like the opposition here too, in my mind. So the Two of Swords, especially in the reverse position, telling me that there's almost like I'm thinking like a battle, or like something that maybe we're trying to let go, or something to release, or something that has been heavy, as far as like choices, or two different things that have been going on, or two different things that we're trying to balance, but mentally, communicatively. And I'm thinking, because it's in the reverse position, that it's something that is releasing, or something that is letting go of. So that's where it makes me think of like, like if you have two of something that is coming together, that's a little bit more positive. But if you have two of something that has been a struggle, then, we're going to try to release it. So that's, being that it's in the reverse position, that is how it's feeling to me. So something that we can release, something that we can let go of. And then the Hanged Man is suspended in air, right? So this is us being forced to slow down. Saturn does not always give us a choice. So Saturn may just slow us down mentally. It may slow us down communicatively this week as it comes into contact with Mercury. Or we can take the moment to slow down ourselves, and we can suspend ourselves in time. Suspend ourselves in the moment, and consider the two things that are here with us, and see what is working, what is not. Let go what is not working, right? And there can be a lot of different things that are coming up here with the oppositions that we have this week. The process that Mercury is going to go through of interacting with Saturn, going across the sign boundary into the sign of Libra, and then interacting with Neptune right after that. The Sun's going to do that next week as well. So if there's things that come up this week with Mercury going through that process, so things coming up within our mental sphere, maybe just surfacing to our mind, maybe different decisions that we have, or different weighty things that are there, what is working, what is not, what needs to be dissolved, what do we need to immerse ourselves in, that Saturn and Neptune together there a little bit. It can start here mentally, but next week, as the Sun moves through that, it can feel much more deep within us, much more at a soul level. So if things are starting to turn this week, related to a specific area of your life within the mind, next week we might really feel it with a lot more heat. We might feel it with a lot more soul, and we might feel it a lot more within our being here. So paying attention to these messages that are coming through, I think might really, really help in that aspect. So really what we're doing here this week, in the between spaces, there are messages. Really, that's what we do anytime we tap into a meditative space, right? We come to an in-between space and we look to see what messages may come through there, even if the message is, thank you for slowing yourself down. Thank you for coming to this space and sitting with yourself for a couple minutes here, even if it's just like that. So on that note, let's go ahead and slow down, especially after the funky stuff we have going on here. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get the intention off here. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess I'll leave it up there for just one more moment for anybody to take a peek at. In the between spaces, there are messages. In the between spaces, there are messages. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull the intention off here for this week. Okay. And I'm going to take a deep breath before I move into the meditation. Feel free to join me if you'd like to. Freestyle at your own pace, take in your own breath. Moving ourselves into the hanged man position, suspending ourselves before the universe decides to do it for us. All right. So as always, we have our intentional candle here that I'm going to get ready to light. It's white, for purity, cleansing, and really just a blank slate for you to bring whatever you need to into this meditation. You know, we bring the astrology of the week, we bring the intention, we bring the weekly video, and all the details that we go through there to this space, but really you're bringing it to your own space. You're sitting, we're not gathering in one physical space, right? You are coming to your own space and bringing these different energies and cultivating it to your own life. You know, hopefully as we talk and speak about the astrology, you think about the things that are going on in your own life, and you're able to personally relate it to whatever it is that you have going on. So I want this to be a space where you can just create a connection and a relationship, but within your own space in your own way. So white, I choose the intention, I choose the words, I choose the meditation. You can choose the color or the energy that the candle radiates for you. And feel free to light your own candle too if you have one. It can be anything. It can be a white chime candle like this. It can be a scented jar candle. It can be a candle that is like super fancy and expensive. It can be a dollar store candle, or anything else that you want to bring into it. So, okay, I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase, and I encourage you to say it with me in any capacity that you feel comfortable with. Saying it out loud, writing it down, saying it in your head, whatever works for you. So, in the between spaces, there are messages. All right, I'm going to light the intentional candle. As I do so, the flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. In the between spaces, there are messages. In the between spaces, there are messages. All right. So, if you haven't already, find yourself a nice, comfortable seated position as we move into the meditation portion of our session here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and just say that there's not going to be any music behind this, so that is going to put us even more in the in-between space. And as I think about it, I think about how this little gadget that I have not working right now puts me in the in-between space, and I'm going to That's a special little thing for me to sit with here. So just being real and honest about what comes up. All right. So as we come into our meditative space here, let's begin to turn our attention towards the breath. And as we turn our attention towards the breath and you hear me say those words, perhaps you feel like you know exactly what to do in that moment, and you come into your own space and you start to drop in. Or perhaps there's a part of you that thinks, what does that even mean? Turn your attention to the breath. Our focus often is scattered. Our focus is often on many different things at one time. The attempt here, as we come to this space, is to focus our attention on one thing while focusing on nothing at the same time. It's a very in-between space. So as we begin this meditation, and I say turn your attention towards the breath, do your best to tune out the world around you. Do your best to release any thoughts that come to your mind. And we begin by focusing on the breath. The breath that is always a part of us. The breath that moves in and out through the respiratory process without us even thinking about it. So as we turn our attention towards the breath, we begin to notice and acknowledge the breath as it is in this moment. As you begin to observe the breath and acknowledge it, you may feel the desire to change or alter or improve the breath in some way. There will be time for that, but for right now, let's sit with the breath in the condition that it is, in the way that it comes to us naturally within this moment. Noticing the inhale, noticing the exhale, noticing how it feels, and anything else that comes up for you. Notice any sensations in your body, any changes. Notice where you're able to relax or where you feel stiff. Notice if there's any pauses or fluctuations in the breath. If your attention or your mind begins to wander, if you start to feel bored or start to feel restless, remember that we are slowing down this week. Remember that we are given an invitation to maybe explore the more sensitive or perhaps uncomfortable spaces this week. breath that you came to this space with is a direct result of your experiences, of your level of energy, of your emotions, everything that has led you to this moment. The events of today, of this week, this month, year, and ultimately of your entire life. So there is a way in which, when you honor the breath that you hold, without changing, without altering it, there is a way in which you are honoring every experience that has brought you to this moment. The good, the bad, and the indifferent. They are all a part of you, just as your breath is. Now, even though those experiences shape us and form us, just as they form our breath, we have the ability to interject, at least to a certain degree. Perhaps some things are laid out and we are bound to experience them one way or another, but perhaps we are also able to create some alterations within certain parameters. Perhaps within our fate and destiny, there is also free will. That applies to the breath as well. So here I invite you to start to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Here I encourage you to allow your only goal to be that each inhale slightly deeper, slightly longer, and bringing in slightly more air than the inhale that came before it. Same thing with the exhales. I encourage you to have your only goal here be that each exhale is slightly longer and releases slightly more air than the exhale that came before it. Through this process, you move through the inhales and the exhales, deepening and expanding not only the breath, but your connection to the space that you are entering. A space of uniting with yourself through the process of slowing down and turning within. Exploring the inhales and the exhales on your own time and in your own space. If your mind begins to wander, it begins to feel restless, gently guide it back to the breath and to the expansion of the breath. Whether you have to remind yourself to come back once or 1,000 times, this is your own personal journey. moving through at your own pace. This week does not rush. This week, I encourage you to allow and attempt to not be too rigid. Saturn will bring enough of that in for us. This week, there are oppositional tensions that each of us will explore in our own ways. And as you deepen the inhale and the exhale, in a way, you explore these tensions right there. The inhale and the exhale are opposites of each other. One brings in, one releases. One expands into our being, the other expands outward from our being. There is a between space at the bottom of the inhale as well as at the top of the inhale. The bottom of the exhale as well as at the top of the exhale. So as we move through the respiratory process, as we move through breaths, we start at the bottom of the inhale, a space of starting, a space of initiating, a space of emptiness. And then we bring that energy into our being through the inhale. We feel it, sometimes we see it, and it fills up our being. At the top of that inhale, once you've brought in as much air as you possibly can, we are given a moment to pause. A moment to pause and reflect on everything that we've brought in, reflecting on the abundance, the fullness, and the growth that we have within our being as well as surrounding us. Whether or not that pause is long or short, it's there. There's that in-between space. And then just as quickly as we come to the top of the inhale, perhaps we start to release the breath. Air begins to escape from our lungs, releasing tension, stress, and energy that is ready to be let go of. Once we get to the bottom of the exhale, there's a space of emptiness, a space of sacrifice, and a space of surrender. A space that is in many ways in opposition to the top of the inhale. We have a space of fullness and a space of release. Both spaces in between the inhale and the exhale. It is within those spaces that great messages can come through. Think about the spaces in the moments in your life that you have felt the most full, the most complete, the most abundant, the most cared for, like the top of the inhale. Think about the messages that have come through in those moments. Messages of love, messages of support, messages of positivity. Now think of your greatest moments of surrender, of letting go, of releasing. Some of which may have felt empowering, other of which that may feel a little bit like that letting go was too difficult to do. Maybe it feels more like a loss in some ways. What messages have come through in those moments? Messages of service, messages of sacrifice, messages of completion. Perhaps they taught us to stand on our own. Perhaps they've shown us our own true strengths within us. Perhaps they've shown us a great deal about others. These are in-between spaces that we find ourselves in throughout the fluctuations of life. And those pauses in between our breath can remind us of those lessons on a daily basis. In the between spaces, there are messages. When we take a moment to see the pauses in life, when we take a moment to stop and breathe, look around, we notice these between spaces in many areas of our lives. We notice them out in nature, as well as within our own being through that inhale and that exhale. That inhale and that exhale is always with us. It happens automatically without us having to think about it or make it happen. As you walk through your day-to-day life, with each step that you take, there is an in-between space. There is a moment between each step as you are walking that puts you in between where you were and where you are going. And if you contemplate on that, I guarantee you will find some lovely, lovely, interesting messages. If you think of the waves at the edge of the water, any water's edge that you can think of, maybe your favorite space to go to, maybe it's a lake, maybe it's the ocean. Between the waves that come wash up to the beach, bringing the water level up slightly, and then receding back into the body of water, and then coming back towards the shore. There is a moment when you see those waves come up to the shoreline where the water pauses just briefly for a moment before it recedes back out into the body of water. And then, almost rhythmically, the water comes back up, kissing the water's edge once more, pause, rushing back out. Slight moment of pause before the water comes back up. In between spaces. When we are conversing, whether it's with ourselves, with others, or something greater beyond the physical world, there are pauses in our conversations. We speak in sentences. Punctuation marks at the end of each sentence shows us to pause. When we are driving cars, we shift gears. We shift from park to reverse to drive, maybe back and forth between the three. There is a moment of pause when you're driving a vehicle between being able to go forward and being able to go backwards. You pause and you shift. Think about this week as a moment to pause and shift. Perhaps there's a shift of momentum. Perhaps there's a shift of your mindset and the way you're able to organize. Perhaps there's a shift in your ability to aspire and dream. Maybe there's a shift in the way you can inspire yourselves and others. Maybe there's a magical moment where you can see the messages that are in between the spaces of this world and the energetic world. May you look closely at the subtle messages. May you look closely at the loud messages. May you find moments to slow down and pause. Reflect on what has occurred this far and where you are going from here. This week, the moon moves from the third quarter phase into the dark moon, setting us up for the new moon and solar eclipse in 1 week's time. Next Sunday, September 21st. And as that moon releases its light, it comes into a space of silence. It comes into a space of releasing and letting go in order to begin again. Just as the inhale, just as those steps we take through life, just like the waves of the water meeting the edge of the earth. Pausing between two spaces and honoring both. May we all be able to find that this week. Let's end our meditation on a deep inhale and exhale together. Breathing in, breathing out. One more because that felt nice. Breathing in, holding at the top for just a moment if you can, honoring your own body and ability, of course. Seeing what comes through and release. Pausing for just a moment at the bottom of the exhale. Perhaps you still have your eyes closed. Perhaps you notice sensations and feelings or any messages coming to you at this moment. Before slowly blinking your eyes open. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. Yeah, I am really looking forward to the energy of this week. It's a lot, it's like it's a lot of little things going on. It's a bit of a sequence here with Mercury, and then Venus is doing her thing as well too. So, like I said, Saturn can feel like a lot. Saturn can feel very weighty, very heavy, but Saturn is not one to ignore. Saturn is one to sit with and see what comes up. With the oppositions, like I said, there is that tension to pull things apart, but if we sit with it and if we look, often there's a way to archetypally pull the two together. So considering the houses of Virgo and Pisces, Aries and Libra. Pisces and Virgo have had a lot going on. They've been amplified. We've been talking about them a lot. You know, if anybody wants to talk about it specifically with your own chart, we can always do that within a reading too. So, yeah. Thank you everybody for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And I know we've had quite a few new subscribers here on the channel, so if this is the first week you've been here with us, bear with me with the technical difficulties. Usually it works just fine. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'll figure that out. But yeah, this is all live. Nothing is pre-recorded, so you get, you know, there's no editing, there's no changing anything, so you get exactly what you get in the live, real moments. And I try to always be real and honest about just anything and everything, like, you know, what I got going on, and yeah, I just want to be real and authentic. So yeah, that's why these are live, and that's why we do this here together. And you get real liveness. So whether that's a technical difficulty, whether that's everything flowing great, or the occasional pop in from one of my kids that decide that they're gonna pop on and say hi. Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to just be within this space. Thank you for allowing me to be real and authentic. Thank you for allowing me to take the time off when I need be. You know, like last weekend I had a wedding, and yeah, just thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. If you have not already looked at the weekly video, you can find that on YouTube. Next Friday, the weekly intention for next week will come out. Saturday, weekly video. Next Sunday, we will meet here. If you want a reminder for our meditation for next week, you can go on the Facebook page and go to the events tab, find the event for next week, and then click like interesting, going, or whatever, and then it'll pop up with a reminder for you about that event. So I have those events out through the next couple months, I believe. And yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Share this meditation with anybody that you think might enjoy it or benefit from it. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram for any updates. And meditativeastrology.com is the hub for all of the things, as always. Yeah, so thank you, take care, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, everybody.